Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we got a dynamic show for you today. First, let's talk about what everyone is talking about as it relates to WNBA star Brittney Griner, as there has been a guilty verdict that has been determined for her case. Now let's talk about possible sentencing, the sentencing of the 9 years, the implication, the whole thing, as we check in with Farajii, one of our political analysts, to give us the breakdown, his analysis. Also, speaking of politics, can we talk about what happened in Kansas and in other big states across the country? This election cycle is it's creating a lot of warning shots for both Democrats and Republicans that the country is moving in a much different direction. We'll have that conversation as well. There's also later on, let's talk about, it's almost time for us to get back to school, but what happens when your child goes to school and there aren't any teachers there to teach him or her? There's a national teacher shortage. We'll be checking in with Nira Muhammad, educator, advocate, writer, to talk about what we're going to be seeing in the classroom coming this fall. And we got some major updates and a whole lot more. So stay with us. That's all coming at you right here on today's edition of The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. So happy that you were able to join us today. And let's first talk about the big conversation, the big news. There are a lot of big stories that have broke today, but one of the big stories is about WNBA star, two-time gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist, Brittney Griner. It has been determined that the verdict in her trial regarding the use of cannabis and transporting cannabis across country lines, and it's been determined that she is found guilty, and she was sentenced to 9 years for cannabis possession and with the intent of smuggling. Now, let me tell you what the intent means. She only had less than a gram in her possession. Wow. Now, this comes as a result of a long, drawn-out situation. Griner was originally arrested in Moscow as she was leaving Moscow in the airport back on February the 17th. And at that time, there was also something else that was happening in Moscow, which was the beginning of their war with Ukraine. And as a result of that, and the fact that here you have this woman who is a WNBA star, but also who had traveled to Russia to play overseas, that created a conflict, a number of issues for Brittney Griner and Americans, and another American across the border. So now that the guilty verdict has been rendered and the sentencing has been determined, many people are asking, well, what is President Biden going to do? Now, we have shared with you that the U.S. Secretary of State, Mr. Antony Blinken, had said that they had proposed a prisoner swap with Brittney Griner and another American by the name of Paul Whelan for Victor Bout, who is an arms dealer and a very, very important person in Russia, who they call the Merchant of Death. Now, Russia has not said yes to the proposal. There was actually, from the Kremlin, talks of possibly adding another Russian prisoner that is in U.S. possession, but there has not been any decision made on that situation as of yet. Now, based upon the fact that we just got the guilty judgment today, now America has to figure out how to best move dealing with this situation. And more importantly, considering the fact that, this is just me, folks, considering the fact that America has been going hard in the paint against this superpower on the other side, now they have to figure out, the Biden administration is going to be challenged to determine what's the best course of action while they want to keep the pressure on the on Moscow and the Kremlin, how do you keep the pressure on a country that you're trying to ask a favor from? Let's talk about it. Let's bring in one of our political analysts. He serves as the founder and owner of DMV Daily Media Group, our brother Hassan, Mr. Politics Giordano. Hassan, good to talk to you today. How are you, bro?
Always a pleasure, brother. How you feeling?
I'm good. So, I love talking politics with you because you're gonna get right to the you're gonna just get right to the facts. Here's my assessment, Hassan. You tell me if I'm off on this, bro. They wanted to make a statement out of Brittney Griner, and Russia knows that it has leverage, even though America, we've imposed all these sanctions and we're leading the charge when this Ukraine conflict. This is a big win for Russia. And this puts President Biden in a very, very precarious position, not just because it's an American, because she's a Black woman, she's a part of the LGBTQ community, two communities that President Biden has come out and forcefully said that he would support. Now, he also has to deal with the other side of the matter, which is you got to ask Russia for a favor when you're talking about talking tough and waging a war against them. How does that all play out, bro?
Well, first of all, Russia's court is a cartoon, right? I mean, it's not a democracy. It's not. You think our criminal justice system is bad here in America. Try to go over there in one of those third world countries or in Russia or one of these countries, and you'll be begging to come back to America and our criminal justice system. They needed leverage, right? Paul Whelan was not the type of leverage that America would need. And that's why you never heard them forcefully come to try to prisoner swap for Paul Whelan, right? And that's the espionage. He was charged with espionage and sentenced there in Russia. He's an American citizen and really a political prisoner. So Russia realized that wasn't the leverage they needed. Brittney Griner was, right? They caught her with, like you said, less than an ounce of cannabis oil. Wasn't even the bud. It was the oil that goes into the little vape sticks. Now, while that might not be much in America based on the legalization of it in certain states, it still is a federal offense here in America, and I guess an offense as well in any other country. But to the degree of 9 years is absolutely ridiculous. But again, here's the thing. President Biden puts out a statement, you should have let him go. Well, that doesn't give Russia any leverage if they let him go. There was no way in the world they were going to let Brittney Griner go with any type of light sentence. Matter of fact, the judge made a statement and made it act like she was giving her a light sentence based off of what she called her remorse of the deed, her state of health, and her charitable activities. So instead of the 9.5 years prosecutors were seeking, we'll just give her 9, right? And just call it a day. But again, that was Vladimir Putin getting the leverage he needed in order for him to be able to bring home their what they call their guy, the
Merchant of Death.
Merchant of Death. And that's what this is all about, right? It's negotiations. They realize they got a hand to play. America realizes they have their own hand to play. And at the end of the day, the people who are stuck in between are Paul Whelan and Brittney Griner, unfortunately, who, if you think American prisons are bad, go over to a Russian prison and you'll be begging to come to have a stay at one of our Holiday Inns compared to theirs. I'm telling you, it ain't good. But here's the bigger issue, though, Farajii, that I think people should pay attention to. And our government has never really dealt with this. And I know about it from not personal experiences from me, from other individuals who I've spoken to over the years who've had their share of stays in prisons across the globe. And you see it even on TV with Locked Up Abroad, right? Many of these countries, including what we just saw happen to Brittney Griner, who's a international celebrity, they get charged or they get caught in an airport or wherever, and they're forced to sign documents without translators. And these people are doing it purposely because they don't understand the language. This doesn't just happen in Russia. This happens in countries across the world. And when they get American citizens, they don't afford them the translator to understand the documents that they're forcing them to sign, which in many cases are admissions of guilt. And that's exactly what they did to Brittney Griner. She didn't understand what was really going on and the magnitude of what she was signing, and they forced her into it. And a lot of times they'll use torture methods if you don't try to sign it until you do sign it in countries like Russia, but other third world countries as well. This is an issue that the American government really needs to start focusing on as it pertains to American citizens traveling abroad and being in countries like this, either warning Americans before they travel, or two, working with these countries to ensure that nothing like this goes on for their citizens moving forward.
All right, so there are a couple of things I want to bring up as you shared those thoughts, and I think you're on point with that. First and foremost, let us show, and Keenan and Lee's, let's show the statement coming from President Biden in regards to this situation. When he released this statement earlier today. Today, American citizen Brittney Griner received a prison sentence that is one more reminder of what the world already knew. Russia is wrongfully detaining Brittney. It is unacceptable, and I call on Russia to release her immediately so she can be with her wife, loved ones, friends, and teammates. My administration will continue to work tirelessly and pursue every possible avenue to bring Brittney and Paul Whelan home safely as soon as possible. Now, that's the statement from President Biden. When we look at that, I mean, I understand the tone of the statement, but I would think the president would need to kind of be very strategic about the tone he uses in this matter because of the leverage that Russia wields. They have her, she already admitted she was wrong. There are laws that said that she was wrong. So it's and by her being an international celebrity, it just adds to it. So, do you think, what's the best tone that the Biden administration need to use, or more importantly, Secretary of State? Yes, Victor Bout, of course, but I read that Russia is looking to bring somebody else, and I feel like that might not even be enough for Russia to let her go. What do you think the tone that he should use, and what do you think Russia is really going to be after?
Well, understanding that I'm not behind those closed doors, and almost nobody is other than the Secretary of State, possibly on behalf of the United States and the foreign dignitaries for Russia. But I would assume that it's not just for Mr. Bout. I assume that given the war that we see currently going on, Russia, this is kind of taking a longer than expected tone. And again, Vladimir Putin is really about self-interest and about, his credibility and his image. And so I would assume, knowing Mr. Putin based off of his actions, not knowing him personally, but based off of his actions in the past, he is probably looking for a way out or a win in this Ukraine effort, as well as any possibility of a release of prisoners like Victor. And let's make no mistake about it. They could care less about Victor if he can score a win, meaning Putin, and look favorable in the eyes of America, right? That's all he really cares about. So if he can get that accomplished, political prisoner swaps I don't think is his number one agenda. I think that's probably, if ever all else fails, that might be something that they can score, in order to bring home to show his citizens that, hey, look, I'm doing what you tasked me to do. But at the end of the day, I think it's hard pressed for the president to come out making statements like, allow your Secretary of State to do his job, right? Start there. The attorneys for Ms. Griner, of course, they're following the playbook of, oh, this is too much, we're going to appeal. But look, it's true that most individuals with crimes of this nature typically get about 5 years and not upwards of 9 years. And most of them do end up getting parole. But again, you don't want Ms. Griner having to sit out for however long that process is before she's granted parole. And then on parole, you cannot go back to America. You have to stay in Russia until the completion of that parole. So that's certainly not something that they want, an avenue they want to explore, including the appeal. the appeal process, it is very unlikely that she's going to get a more favorable sentence. So their greatest appeal is an appeal to the Secretary of State and to President Putin to bring this deal home, close it as fast as possible in order to get Paul Whelan and Ms. Griner home back to on American soil.
Right. Absolutely. All right, let's go take some comments. Folks are checking in on our YouTube page, Facebook page, and other platforms to share their thoughts about Brittney Griner and the latest development. She is found guilty. She's been sentenced to serve 9 years in the Russian prison system. And guess what, folks? They are still trying to work. And I'm saying they, meaning the Biden administration, is still trying to work to bring her home. All right, let's go to the to the lines and hear what people have to say. Janelle, good to hear from you today, sis. You said the attorney for the potential Russian to be swapped has stated that this blowhorn diplomacy, hasn't been good for anyone involved, and the State Department has agreed. So now silent diplomacy will resume. Yeah, that's Hassan. I actually heard that they wanted to really have these conversations behind closed doors and not in the public space. What do you make of that?
Well, you don't want to. Putin is not a stable individual, right? So you don't want the president or somebody else speaking publicly that says anything that might set him off. That may, they may be close to a deal behind closed doors in these diplomatic agreements and these meetings, and then President Biden comes out and makes one of his gaffes or puts out a statement that pisses off Putin to a point that deal is no longer it's null and void, right? And so that's part of the thing. And number two is you also don't want to get the hopes up of anybody on either side, especially the friends and family of Brittney Griner, or even to some degree, Mr. I keep forgetting his name. The other individual, Mr. Whelan, right?
Yeah.
His family, because they've been fighting for his release for a long time. You just haven't heard it because he's not a national celebrity like Brittney Griner is, right? And so now to have this possibility that he might finally be brought home, you don't want to give false hope to the families. One, and two, you don't want to send the wrong message to Russia that you're caving on anything in regards to that, because you can best believe Russia is paying attention to CNN, they're paying attention to MSNBC, they're paying attention to the culture. They're looking at all of this because it's a propaganda. They're good at that. That's what they're used to. And so they want to see what type of leverage they're having with the American citizenry based off our news outlets. And when you make comments like the president just made or could make in the future, that can very well derail any type of negotiations going on behind closed doors.
I definitely believe that. Janae, you checked in. Good to hear from you, sis. You said this is what they mean, prisoners of war. The swap will allow a real murderer to return home. We might have to let this settle till later on in the year because it's a lot of attention right now. I think Janae is bringing up a good point in terms of the timing of all of this. What do you see as being one of the biggest challenges of timing? Because if we go further along, we get closer to the fall election. What would you think will work best?
Yeah, I don't think that the Democrats and the Biden administration want this to stretch on. They do not want this anywhere near November, because this then has an opportunity to derail the conversation they really want to be having with voters through the media outlets in terms of abortion rights that we saw playing out based off the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, in terms of the economy and things that they want American citizens to be focused on going into November 8th. This is the last thing that you want the American citizenry and voters to be paying attention to. So if I'm the Biden administration, I want to really get this wrapped up as soon as possible to bring Ms. Griner home. Because if you let it delay even through the elections or even till next year, then it becomes a part of going back and forth. Now nobody has hope anymore. You let it stretch on way too long. The Griner family, the Whelan family start looking at the Biden administration like they're ineffective, that they're not really putting their all into these efforts, not knowing what's going on behind closed doors. So that's the last thing you need is for time. Time is not the friend of the Biden administration in this particular situation.
No, and what do you make of, the fact that this is a black woman who's part of the LGBTQ community, two groups of people who have delivered the presidency to Joe Biden. How important is this case for his and for the Democrats' political future, you think?
I don't think it's an extremely important. I don't see voters, going to the polls specifically based off of this case, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime in the future. Most voters, first and foremost, deal with pocketbook issues, the economy, then they deal with the education of their children, things of that sort. I don't think that this is going to derail any political aspirations, future political aspirations, whether it's for President Biden or any of the his Democratic colleagues. But I do think at the end of the day, this is a thorn in the side of an administration you just don't want, right? It's not going to hurt you so much politically unless they really start to organize on the ground and start making this a political issue leading into the midterms or leading up 2 years from now when the president is considering running for re-election. But at the end of the day, it's just something that you just don't want to have to deal with, on a regular basis. Everyday politics you can deal with, right? Dealing with the economy and dealing with voting rights and things of that sort. But situations like this is not something that any administration, Republican or Democrat, will want to deal with because it's something of a PR nightmare that you really can't control and you can't get Congress to help you out. This is something that you really have to deal with on your own. So the quicker the better in all aspects.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right as well. Real Brooklyn checked in. Real Brooklyn, you said, oh, come on, folks. Are you really angry at Brittney being arrested for drugs in a country like Russia? I've heard this, Brother Hassan, that folks are saying, I mean, I'm sad for her, but this is Russia. She should have known better. This is not her first trip over across seas. She should certainly have been more responsible. What do you think of that sentiment, bro?
Look, if she had packed a gun or a half a pound of marijuana or a pound of cocaine, then I could understand that sentiment. This was cannabis oil that's put in a vape. It's something that you very well would not even pay attention to when you're packing. Of course, she knew that it wasn't allowed in Russia, right? But she just got this diagnosis from a doctor. She was given this subscription for this recently before packing it. So it wasn't as if she was trying to traffic drugs. And I get it, right? She broke the law and you want to be able to deal with that. But at the end of the day does the ends justify the means? 9 years in prison for, again, less than an ounce of cannabis oil? Come on.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And I mean, look, you and I know that this is like and I think, let me make sure I know who said it. Mike, you said she is a pawn in a geopolitical chess game. Russia moved their bishop. Now it's the U.S. turn. That's where we are right now, Hassan. This is chess. This is about strategy. This is about power. This is about being able to get what you want from the other person, from your enemy. Like this is a geopolitical chess game right now.
Yeah, because the Russian officials could have easily just threw this in the trash, right? They know she wasn't trying to traffic any large amount of drugs. But they realized who they had, and they realized the potential of what this could mean. So don't think, because look, Putin wasn't there. Putin wasn't the one who arrested him, but his comrades, they understand this. They knew exactly who they had. They knew what that would benefit for them. Because think about the benefit that the individuals who put her into incarceration, who locked her up at the airport. Oh, you can best believe Putin is giving them something, right? Because they gave him a prize. They gave him something to work with to leverage against America. And that's all exactly what Mike is saying. It's a geopolitical move. And America, unfortunately, hasn't always been the best chess players when it comes to moves like this. Putin has typically outmaneuvered many of foreign dignitaries as well as presidents from the United States, including the past one. So we'll see how Joe Biden and this administration deal with it. I just hope it's sooner rather than later, and this sister and Mr. Whelan don't have to suffer more days behind prison walls.
let me ask you this, Hassan. How confident are you that a deal will be made, that something will be done about this within the next 30 days?
30 days from now, not very confident at all. I do think that something will get done, only because America has publicly said it on multiple occasions, including the president and the Secretary of State, and because there's such political pressure from the NBA, the WNBA, the LGBT community. There's a lot of eyes on this now. So it's not something that the Biden administration can just kind of sweep under the rug and move on. They're going to have to deal with it. So I think it gets done at some point. The question is what gets done and when it does get done.
That is the big question, bro. That is the question. I mean, those are the questions right there. Like, what will get done and how will it get done? And it's going to be interesting to see how the president moves. Just even, I mean, we've given $40+ billion to Ukraine already. We've given them money. We've given them arms. We've given them other type of support. We're talking about going to, we have a tense relationship with China, which is an ally of Russia. So it just doesn't look good. You know what I mean? It just doesn't look good. And I was having a conversation earlier this morning, and it was said that she made a bad mistake at the wrong time. And that's the hard pill we got to swallow, bro. She made a bad decision, even though it was in haste, it was in human error, and I get all of that. But she made a bad mistake, rather, at the wrong time. If this was any other time, we probably been like, all right, we probably would have seen a different outcome. But because America and the tense relationship between America and Russia during prosecuting this war for Ukraine, I truly, truly believe that is one of the big factors as to why we are seeing things develop the way they are for Brittney Griner. It's because of that war. It's because of our stand. And if we have decided to stay out and not get as involved with their Ukraine fight or not be leading the charge, I'm sure we could have, something would have been worked out. But man, oh man, what a hell of a place to be when you talk about this.
If she would have did this when Putin's bestie was in, Donald J. Trump, back in 3 years ago, nothing would have happened.
Matter of fact, she would probably have been coming home.
With a Medal of Honor.
Hey, look, he got, I mean, A$AP Rocky, the hip hop artist, he got him coming home. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy, but it probably wouldn't have gotten this far. Mm-hmm. Now, would Putin even been at war with Ukraine? I don't know. The jury is still out. But would she be locked up the way she locked up right now, looking at 9 years in Russian prison? No. But you know what though? This is not about point and blame. What this is about is you can't even say this is about right and wrong, because you can't use the standard of America to the standards of Russia. They do things totally different than the way we do things over here. I know some people say this is unacceptable, this is wrong. This is Russia. This is Russia. This is another superpower. Now, that's the other thing. We got to put this country in its proper context. They are a superpower. Mm-hmm. They are, you know what I mean? It's not like, Turkey. This is not like some small country. This is Russia. So they're saying, wait a minute, hold up. You cut off our balls in other places. We still got a ball or two left over here, though. And so I think we can keep that in mind.
Other countries like China and others, they will kill you over a certain amount of drugs that you're trying to transport or traffic through. So we take our drug policies are very lenient as compared to many other countries, third world countries and superpowers across the world.
And look, you spoke of China. We're not going to have a chance to get into it, but I mean, just what we saw with the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, she visited Taiwan yesterday. She came home. You talk all that big talk, then today China is talking about doing missile tests. They say if you go over there, because China still sees Taiwan as part of their territory, they say if you go over there, you're playing with fire, and there's going to be some repercussions. because they shouldn't have hosted you. And she went over there, and then next thing you know, they started shooting off missiles this morning to let them know, to let the whole world know, oh, our missiles are accurate. Take a look, folks. Take a look.
What I'm wondering is, Farajii, to what degree and what level was this coordinated with the Biden administration? I know they say publicly the Biden administration told her not to stand down and not to make this one of her trips, but I don't think that's the case. I think this could have been a soft political hit, kind of like China did with Russia during this whole Ukraine, right? Because they've been silently kind of going back and forth with little softballs, not really hitting each other in the mouth right now. And I think China realizes that this is one of those, and that's why those missiles came about. I'm telling you, at some point, and I think some point soon, China is going to get very hostile to America, and we're going to have to deal with them one way or the other.
Hey, bro, we can't afford that.
No, not right now. No.
No. And if you have a seasoned political leader like Joe Biden, who's been in Congress, who served on many different committees, I am a little bit surprised, and I know we got to take a quick pause, but I am so surprised that at his first year in the White House, or a couple of 2 years into the White House, you're talking about beef with Russia, tense relations with China, tense relations with Iran. Like, Mr. President, you mean to tell me you don't know, you moving like you don't know how these countries are? Mm-hmm. And that's the surprising part for me, bro. It's like, if you were a second-term senator, you just happen to end up, if even with Barack Obama, you were like, you made some diplomatic mistake. You are Joe Biden. You've been in this thing for 50 plus years, and you setting fires with all of these countries. And that's the surprising part about this for me.
Yeah, Sleepy Joe is making a lot of strategic mistakes. And that's why you've seen Democrats across the country during these midterms act as if they were busy when Joe Biden came a calling about coming to their state to help them with their midterms. A lot of them said, no, we're good. We don't need you by our side, because they know it's more of a detriment to their campaign than it is positive. And that is a sad reality when he is the leader of the Democratic Party.
Wow. Look, we're going to speak more about those elections that happened. There was big news coming out of Tuesday's election in Kansas. Hassan's going to break it all down for us. And of course, we want to hear your thoughts on the matter of some of the big elections that came out earlier this week, folks, and the implications it will have on November and the party's direction. Stay with us. Those conversations are coming up next on as we come forward right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. We'll be back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's talk about what happened in this recent cycle of elections that happened all across the country. Some of the big takeaways from Tuesday's elections. And one of the big one was what happened in Kansas. Man, oh man, if you're in the state of Kansas, you know what I'm talking about. It was a very, very hard blow to Republicans to see that Kansas still wants to keep an abortion right in place for women, and so many other big takeaways from that. Let's bring back now one of our top political analysts. He serves as the owner of DMV Daily Media Group, Hassan, Mr. Politics Giordano. Hassan, when we talk about looking at these elections, all of these things that we have been discussing has been happening during a very, very active season, election year, excuse me. But one of the things, before we even get into the issues, I'm wondering, are people coming out to vote based upon the numbers? Are people coming out to vote in this election cycle during this election year in spite of or because of what's been happening nationally?
Well, it really differs based off the state, based off the primary that's before me and the candidates who are running for different offices, and based off the issues at hand. Now, Maryland, the state that I'm in, a few weeks ago on the 19th of July, came out, was one of the worst turnouts in Maryland history. I think about 17% of the overall turnout showed up to vote on primary election day, which was miserable across the state. Baltimore City, the city I live in, was the second worst in terms of 24 jurisdictions in Maryland. They were the second worst at like 13.8% turnout. I mean, it was just horrendous. But yet, then still, this past Tuesday, we saw Kansas and other states turn out, and Kansas turned out at over 50%. Now, their Secretary of State at the time, Scott Schwab, had estimated about a 36% turnout in that state. However, the constitutional charter amendment, the ballot reform referendum that was on the ballot that would have removed the right to abortion from the state's constitution, really catapulted a lot of voters to the polls, right? And they turned out in mass numbers, in record numbers, and over 50% of the turnout for that primary, specifically because of that, right? Now, we've seen in other states like Arizona and others that have contested Republican and or Democratic primaries, there was turnout where, was good. But then again, in other states where even there were open governor seats and open statewide seats, and even some contested primaries in both the Democrat and Republican primaries, many voters, just based off the timing of their elections, may have stayed home because, again, in a lot of states, because this was a redistricting year, you had redistricting legal court battles, which pushed a lot of these primaries back, may have altered dates, like right here in Maryland. And what happened was a traditional primary that may have been done in the early spring now is pushed back into the midsummer, where most people are on vacation or not really paying attention to politics. And it really hurt the parties in general because it was a very low turnout in many of both the Republican and Democratic primaries. But Kansas sent a message, Farajii. They sent the message loud and clear, and Republicans better pay attention for this fall. They sent the message that said, we ain't having that. You are not dealing with our rights as women. And the biggest winners of Tuesday's election, besides former President Trump, were Democrats and women as it relates to Kansas.
So if that was the message that's sent, how confident are you that the Democrats are able to build off of that momentum and to use it to their advantage to get some more seats in Congress?
Not as much. And this is the reason. It really all depends on the type of candidate that you're going to have during the general election. And not every state is going to have a referendum item on it like Kansas had in regards to abortion, right? You could talk about abortion being an issue. And if you want to drive home that message based off a particular candidate who's running for governor or U.S. Senate who may have talked about limiting women's rights to abortion, I think that will really galvanize women on both sides of the aisle. This isn't just a Democratic issue. Republican women and independents alike do not want Congress or anybody else dealing and taking away their rights, especially their reproductive rights. So, in that particular instance, you can galvanize people to the polls. But when you have a state where that may not, like for instance, Maryland, the abortion is protected in our state constitution. They actually, the democratically controlled legislature, even strengthened it even more this past legislative session. So that's not an issue that Marylanders are going to come out for, right? And so again, turnout may not be that great in November because we have a right-wing Republican running against a newer elected Democrat in Westmore. Dan Cox was a Trump-backed candidate. And so there's really no push for voters to want to come out. A lot of people will think that the Democratic candidates across the aisle will probably win and win easily. So in their mind, it's like, you really don't need me to come out because they'll win. Where in other states where you have candidates who that Trump is backed, and he has an impressive slate, and that we'll go through, I'm sure, during this, from Arizona and other states, of right-wing conspiracy theorists, January 6th, pro, you stole the election from our guy Donald Trump type of individuals. Democrats can then start to make the case that these are individuals that you do not want to get elected, or they will take away your reproductive rights and other rights moving forward. That may drive turnout in some of those other states.
No, absolutely. We want to get a couple of comments as we continue to have this conversation, talking about some of the big takeaways from Tuesday's elections that was happening in certain parts of the state. Let's go to Damon. Damon, you checked in and said, look, I voted no on that Amendment 2 here in Kansas to keep abortion protection in place. Damon, you also said that Farajii, they said that the independent voter registration went up for this primary election. Did you hear about that one, Hassan?
Yeah. And so, see, and people get confused at that because there are certain states where as though independents can vote. See, you're used to a closed primary like Maryland, where independents cannot vote in the primary unless they're voting for nonpartisan candidates, like school board candidates. They're not allowed to participate in either the Democratic or Republican primaries. Other states are allowed to. The independents can then choose between, when they go to the polls, they can choose whether they want to vote within the Democratic and or Republican primary during that election. And so that really then allows both parties, and I like that process a lot better, because what it does is it forces the parties to not go to the right or to the left to that extreme, like we've seen in Maryland, right? Because they're not talking specifically to party loyalists. Now they have to start talking to independents and people who are more moderate and down the middle. And when you have that at play, then you start to see a message that is more moderate, and it's not, so conservative or so much liberal, because they have to now consider the independents and the third parties who may show up and vote in their primaries. And so their message has to be tailored for that. And that's what you start to see in general elections alike, because, again, independents then can vote as third parties in general elections. But in states across the country, there are open primaries, whereas though independents can vote in either the Democratic or Republican primary.
Yeah, absolutely. McCole, good to hear from you. Damon, thank you so much, brother. McCole, you checked in. Good to hear from you, sis. You said the state of Kansas chose violence on Tuesday. Who wants someone telling them what health decisions they can or cannot make with their body? The women in Kansas were not having it. I'm thinking, Hassan, and tell me if I'm wrong about this. I know that you just mentioned that it's not going to be, the abortion reproduction rights is not going to be a referendum on everybody's ballot, but I just feel like it's going to drive and motivate people. But my concern is that Democrats are going to continue to try to play off of that and still think, oh, okay, well, we got some new people to our party, not understanding that just the general political sentiment of folks is that, yeah, you can be a little conservative, but you can also be a little bit liberal. And so the messaging for the Democrats should be more, I think, down the center versus, oh, they're going to go all in on our side, because that just may not be the case.
It isn't. And here's the sad part of closed primaries in elections like Maryland, right? Most of the times in primaries, in party primaries, the person who is closest to the extreme wins, either the closest to the left or the closest to the right. You usually don't get a very moderate candidate anymore winning their party primaries. The problem with that is now you have two extremes running against each other in November, both of them are trying to tailor that message, like you said, to the middle, right? Because now you have to not only cater to your party, but to the other party, as well as independents and moderates who are more down the middle. And so you just have the two extremes trying to be moderate when clearly they're not, or they would have never won their primary in the first place. And that is the problem with these closed primaries, because you end up with those type of extremes. Whereas though, had you had open primaries from the beginning, you would have had a more moderate, down the middle type of messaging from a candidate, even if they weren't so moderate, but their message would have been more moderate because they had to cater to those particular voters, as opposed to waiting till November to do so. So, you know, it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, especially in states like Arizona, who are, you know, have been trending in the past few years more democratically. President Joe Biden won this state very narrowly 2 years ago, but it used to be a Republican stronghold. Now you started to see an influx of Democrats, specifically around that Phoenix area. And so you started to see it's more of a purple state. But now you have somebody like Blake Masters, who is the Republican nominee for Senate, who is a Trump-backed candidate. You also have Mark Finchem, who was a member of the Oath Keepers, a proud member of that militia. He waived these false allegations of a stolen primary round. He now won the Republican nomination for Secretary of State. And then on top of that, you're either going to have Carrie Lake, who is a conspiracy-minded Trump-backed candidate running for governor, or Karen Taylor Robson, who is a more moderate Republican who is backed by Vice President Pence and other more mainstream Republicans. One of them will be the state's gubernatorial candidate for the Republican nomination. You're going to start to see that message being driven. Is it going to be the far right trying to drive arrest? Because you can best believe those candidates who are Trump-backed are not going towards the center. They're going to make sure that they stay right there where Trump wants them to be. But you may need, the Republican Party may very well need somebody like Karen Taylor Robson at the top of that ticket, a more open-minded, centrist, moderate Republican, to be able to help the down ballot candidates who are running for Congress, state Senate, state delegate. Because when you have these extremes at the top of the ticket, they carry the ticket. That means they carry how much people actually turn out the vote and who turns out the vote. And you don't want these extreme right or the extreme left turning out or staying home because of those individuals.
So I'm glad that you brought this up, because the Trump factor is still present, is still very real within the GOP. There are a number of candidates who are backed personally by the former president, and they're winning elections. So a couple of things. One is, you know, we certainly have, you and I had time to talked offline about, you know, the Democrats and Republicans coming together to create the Forward Party. The more and more I hear about Trump-backed candidates, I'm thinking to myself, are they still Republican? Or is this another party? Because at this point, it seems like this is still a fact. And then given, yes, every one of the candidates he has back hasn't won every single election. He's not that good. But it's just the simple fact, Hassan, that you have to say Trump-backed candidate, and then that's like a differentiation between the traditional Republican Party. What do we do with that? At this point, do we treat that like Trump is a party in and of himself?
He's not, but he seems to be running the Republican Party. And the reason why you have that messaging of a Trump-backed candidate as opposed to a GOP-backed candidate is, and I think in large part, because the moderates of the Republican Party want it that way. They want individuals to understand that that is not the GOP that they've grown accustomed to. That's not the GOP they grew up in. But they're too scared to say it publicly because they're scared of Donald Trump, right? And what that may mean in his militia of individuals and his following of people who may very well boot them out. Look, okay, for instance, there were 10 congressional members of Congress who voted to impeach Donald Trump. Out of those 10, 4 retired before they could ever see a vote before the voters. I think they were probably scared that they wouldn't get reelected. Congressman Tom Rice of South Carolina was defeated by a Trump-backed candidate. Congressman David Vallado of California actually survived his Trump-backed candidate. Tuesday night, Peter Meyer of Western Michigan lost to a Trump-backed candidate. And then the two members from Washington's congressional member, Jamie Herrera Butler and Dan Newhouse, their races were too close to call at the time for us to know if their Trump-backed candidates ended up beating them. So there's a reason why the Republican GOP and the more moderate centrist part of the party has not in full force kind of pushed Donald Trump out of the way, because he's just not that easy to push out of the way. He is essentially the leader of the Republican Party. Now, I know many Republicans who wish he would just go away or start that third party and get him and those individuals, those ultra right-wing individuals, out of that party into a third world party. But there's a reason why he's not doing it, because he knows that he controls the Republican Party, and that is such an institution that it allows him to fundraise and allows him to maintain the amount of power that he has. Starting a new party in and of itself is very tough to do. And that's why I thought, those liberals or more moderate liberals who started a new kind of freedom party, people do it all the time. I have yet to see any of them become fruitful and be long lasting in terms of that. But again, the Democrats have the same thing. Theirs just isn't as focused. They don't have an AOC with the type of power of a Donald Trump to be able to sway these more liberal left-wing Democrats. So you don't really hear about it. Donald Trump is an enigma, and it's somebody that the news media likes to talk and report on, and it's somebody that even Republicans themselves either fear or like to talk about, but without his knowledge of such.
Yeah. How about that? All right, let's talk a little bit as we wrap up this part of the conversation. One of the big takeaways that I heard people talking about nationally is the fact that, politics has gotten to be so toxic that there's still a pull on appealing to, or rather, attacking people from a very, very low place. As we get closer to the general election, do you foresee that a lot of these state and local races are going to be absolutely nasty? Do you think that that's going to be the case, or do you find that, at certain points, like some of the GOP and the Democrats are going to say, if we want to appeal to this more, I would say more knowledgeable voter in America, we're going to have to raise the bar?
Yeah, you're going to have, at some point, the right-wing, left-wing parts of the party that we're seeing play out that has become very toxic in this country is going to have to implode. There's going to be a reckoning at some point. It has to be, because there's no way I can see that of moving forward in such an amicable way that we have a party system of politics that is favorable for the people. Because at this point, it's just not. And that's why you have such low turnout in so many states across the country. It's because voters are just tired. They're fed up with this partisan politics divide that really gets nothing done, nothing accomplished, at least on their behalf. And that's what these people are in office for, right? Is to represent our interests. And it seems like they forgot it. It seems like, these Trump-backed candidates are there to serve his interests, and these others are there to serve their interests. But none of them seem to be worried about doing the interest of the people that they were elected to serve. And that's why I have so much respect for people like Liz Cheney, who said, I don't care about none of that re-election crap. I'm going to call a spade, and this guy is a lunatic. I'm going to call him that. And if y'all want to put me out of office because of that, I'm okay with that. But I'm going to speak truth to power, because that's who I am. That's what I'm supposed to do. I represent your interests, not my own. And I think, this was a sad day. One of the saddest stories, the greatest joke, we got to leave with this, Farajii, of Tuesday night was the fact that former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens. Now, President Trump, mind you, didn't want to get involved in this. Both candidates to the Republican Party were called Eric. So he just said, I'm endorsing Eric. So either one of them wins, he would win. He resigned his governorship in 2018, Farajii, facing accusations that he lured a former girlfriend to her home, tied her up, tore off her clothes, photographed her partly naked, threatened to release the pictures if she talked, and coerced her into performing oral sex on him, right? Even after his wife accused him in an affidavit of physically abusing her and their younger sons, he pressed on to run for office for the U.S. Senate this past Tuesday, and denying those allegations as if everybody's lying against him, and this is just some made-up fantasy of rhinos, which is Republicans in name only, right? The man ended up getting like 19% of the vote. Like, he came in a distant third. But it's the egos of these people, as if nothing else matters, that they can do anything they want to do, that they're above the law, and they can do what they want, and they're going to continue to run and get elected. That is the type of individuals we got to make sure we make an example out of, to make sure they never come back into politics.
Damn.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I know you probably heard a story of another man. I forgot his name, what state, but he was running for office and he got charges. I mean, he's being investigated for killing his wife.
Oh, yeah. We got a delegate here in Maryland who abused his office with over $100,000 he used for his own personal gain as well in office. And he ended up losing the primary, fortunately enough. But yeah, these people, I'm telling you, man, their egos are the size of the studio you're sitting in, right? I'm telling you, man, they make Trump look like a choir boy, many of these people. I'm telling you.
Be like, bro, you being investigated for killing your wife and you running for office?
Don't care. Many of them watched that Eddie Murphy movie where he got elected off the dead guy's name, and think that that's I can do it. This is the new motto. If Donald Trump can get elected, anybody can get elected. So why not try? That's the new motto.
Here's the thing, as we close out the conversation real quick. Okay, it's one thing to have the ego to say I'm going to run for office. It's another thing to vote for a joker who has the ego, who's running for and plans to. You mean to tell me that your voter expectation, your voter knowledge is so low, you are so pissed off, or whatever the case may be, you mean to tell me you will vote for a man that murders his wife, or a man that abuses his girlfriend, or a man that steals money? You mean to tell me that you can look past that and still see a person who is qualified for public service? You mean to tell me that you could do that? Oh,
you know why they can?
Have done that.
Yeah, you know why they can? Because they're just as sick as them. Point blank, two birds of a feather.
Okay, so that's the shit you be on. Oh, okay, just making sure.
Both of them need to be publicly horsewhipped.
Come on, man. Don't go around kissing my daughter or my son. Don't kiss no damn babies. No, sir. Hassan, Mr. Politics Giordano, owner of DMV Daily Media Group. Hassan, it's always a pleasure. Appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir. Have a good one, brother.
You too. Folks, as we move forward, let's shift gears. Let's talk about what to do as we go back to school. There are great concerns, serious concerns about the state of education in this country, because this year we're seeing a teacher shortage like no other year. Some people have said it is because of COVID. Other people have said it's because of low wages. And still others are saying, regardless of all that, who's going to teach these kids? We're going to have that conversation up next with educator and advocate and writer Neil Muhammad, and so much more. Stay with us. That's happening in the next hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, welcome to the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network, and it has been a fantastic hour. Make sure y'all check out the replay on the first hour as we checked in with Mr. Hassan, Mr. Politics Giordano, to break it down about everything from Brittney Griner to some of the latest takeaways from this Tuesday's elections in states across the country. So that conversation, those conversations are definitely worth checking out. Now we wanted to shift gears from politics to education. Many people are, as we are in the beginning parts of August, there's talk about going back to school. And I know for some teachers, they're like, what? We just got out. If you're an educator, you understand the pain, right? But at the same time, the bigger concern is not about, what children are going to wear or what's going to be taught. It's who's going to teach it. Now there are talks that in districts and school districts across the country that are really, really at a point of trying to figure out who is going to be in the classrooms to welcome these children back to school, as there is a national teacher shortage that is happening. Let me just break down to you for what it is. And we're asking the question, what is the future of public education? But take a look. This came out of the Washington Post that reported this. Let's post this, Lisa and Keenan. Thank you so much. It is the Washington Post reported saying it is hard to know exactly how many U.S. classrooms are short of teachers for the 2022-2023 school year. No national database precisely tracks the issue, but state and district level reports have emerged across the country detailing staffing gaps that stretch from the hundreds to the thousands and remain wide open as summer winds rapidly to a close. The Nevada, for example, take a look. In Nevada, the State Education Association estimated that roughly 3,000 teaching jobs remain unfulfilled across the state's 17 school districts as of early August. In a January report, the Illinois Association of Regional School Superintendents found that 88% of school districts statewide were having problems with teacher shortages, while 2,040 teacher openings were either empty or filled with a less than qualified hire. And in the Houston area, the largest 5 school districts are all reporting that between 200 and 1,000 teaching positions remain open. What is the future of public education? We wanted to have this conversation with none other than our resident educator. She's always very passionate about this. She's an advocate, she's a writer. She also serves as the host of Queen Talks with Nir Muhammad podcast. You can hear them. You can hear that podcast on all streaming platforms. There she is. She's back in the seat.
Oh, how I've missed being here, Farajii.
I know. We miss you so much. All right, so let's talk about this because, when you talk about this teacher shortage, And I just broke down just in some areas, Illinois, we're talking about Nevada, we're talking about Houston down in Texas. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are districts in this country that are trying to figure out, where are the teachers? What's your take on that so far?
Honestly, I'm very happy that there are so many teacher shortages. I believe that in order for there to be reform, they have to see and understand that teachers are fed up. Teaching is such a hard profession. Teachers are underpaid. Schools are understaffed. I mean, there are so many issues. I actually have a friend, Tamika, who's been an educator for, I don't even know how long, but well over 10 years. And she serves on this board that has actually been talking about how the Praxis exam, if any of you don't know, Praxis is the exam that all educators have to take in order to become a certified teacher, how that test itself is very, 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 it's becoming very hard for Black people to pass. So there's an issue where a lot of Black people want to become teachers, but are not passing the Praxis and therefore are missing out on opportunities to even become a teacher. I've taken the Praxis. The Praxis is essentially just like another SAT type of course. I did fine on the Praxis, but I will say that the Praxis does not mean that you are qualified or unqualified to be a teacher. I have met plenty of teachers who have passed the Praxis and are still shitty teachers. I've met teachers who are conditional teachers and have not taken the Praxis yet that are phenomenal teachers. It's really just, it's a metric that's unfair. I think this is something that we're seeing across the board, even when you're looking at students who have to take standardized testing. Tests do not measure how smart you are. Tests do not measure how capable you are to teach a course. And so we're seeing a lot of shortages because, one, teachers aren't passing Praxis. Students who go to college to become teachers are not passing Praxis, the Praxis exam. And so that's another issue that you see. Another one, again, pay. I underpaid for the amount of stress, the amount of energy, the amount of time that we teachers take and put into that profession, so underpaid. Everyone has to go through a teacher. I don't care if you become a rapper. I don't care. So what? Beyonce didn't finish, whatever. I don't care. She still had to go through some teacher. Whether you're a college athlete or a professional athlete, you had to go through a teacher. I don't care. But the fact that in some districts, teachers are only being paid $30,000, $33,000, $40,000. So you had to get a college degree. You had to get a license to say that you could teach, and yet you can't make rent. I've met teachers out at restaurants who are like, yeah, I'm a waitress part-time just so I could pay my bills, but I'm a teacher full-time. That is unacceptable. Wow. I got out of the classroom multiple times because of the high level of stress. Stress from parents, stress from students just not being engaged. No matter how fun I try to make lessons, they just don't want to do it. Or just the constant disrespect. I mean, it's just, there's so many levels and layers to why teachers are leaving the classroom. And yes, COVID definitely made it worse. I can definitely say dealing with the emotional traumas, just so many different things coming back into the classroom. It definitely was worse after COVID than what it was prior to, for sure. Especially for those younger grades, because if you have a child who they started kindergarten when COVID hit, their skills, some of those skills that they would have gained from being in the classroom are now lacking. And so here they are maybe as a second or third grader, and they're really, really struggling. So, I mean, there's just so many issues. I commend teachers all over for finally standing up and saying, enough is enough. I don't make enough money to deal with this bullshit. I'm moving on.
So do you think that, and I mean, I guess part of it is like, you know, knowing the type of assertive advocate that you are, that teachers should wage some sort of rebellion, right? Quote unquote, to wave a revolution, you know, and say, look, we don't get paid enough for this type of stress. We don't get the support that we need. But then on the other side of it is that the qualified teachers like yourself and others who do come into the system, you know, y'all have a passion for making sure that Black children in particular, but all students get high quality educational experience. So if you have if you have school districts that can't address the needs of the teacher, but the students still need that high quality educational experience, how do you make sure that you find some balance between the two? How do you reconcile that?
I mean, it's really hard. I think at the end of the day, administration is going to have to take a look at why teachers are leaving and really pass out surveys. As teachers, I know there should always be an exit interview. For me, I just believe that any job, when a person puts in their 2-week notice, I don't care what field it is, you should have, whether it's a survey, electronic, whether it's something that you sit down and you talk to them one-on-one, face-to-face, you should have an exit interview to find out why are you leaving this field? There are some teachers who literally were like, they didn't even just switch schools or districts. They were like, I'm leaving this profession altogether. I don't want to deal with anything education. I know teachers who went back to school to pursue completely different career paths. And I know for me, I know a lot of teachers' complaints is pay and the lack of respect.
Yeah.
The lack of respect from both parents, because for me, they were a huge issue. And then also the lack of respect from students. Oh my gosh. You get cursed out. You get called the B word. I mean, so much stuff happens. Like I taught 3rd grade this past year for the first time. And I literally one day actually just closed my door and started crying. And I'm not even a crier. I was literally crying because that's how stressed out I was. Just trying to beg my students to please. I've given them so many speeches about how important they're Sweetie, mommy's on. Hold on, sweetie. Mommy's on air right now. Sorry, guys. I'm at the playground with my kids.
It's all good.
I mean, just the level of stress and anxiety that I felt. Sometimes I would literally feel myself getting sick on Sunday, just knowing I had to go into work the next day. And not because I did not love what I did, but just the level of stress that came with it. You know, there's a lot of paperwork involved. I mean, it's just a lot, Farajii. It's a lot. And when you're not getting compensated on top of everything else, it just makes you feel like, what am I even doing? Why am I doing this? Why do I care more? Why do I care more about your education than your own parent or than you? You know, and I would talk to my students and I would tell them, like, you know, the importance of your Black skin, like what your Black skin even means to the world and why it's so important for you to be here, why it's so important for you to care about what your grades look like, care about what you're learning and be invested in what you're learning, because a lot of them just didn't see the value of even being in school in the 3rd grade. I don't need to, why do I need to be here? What do you mean? Why do you need to be here? You're in the 3rd. You can't read. You can't read. You're on a kindergarten reading level and you're in 3rd grade. That's why you're here, bro. Sit down.
Wow.
And you're trying to teach. And then it's just all these other things going on. You're like, I just want to slam my head on the chalkboard because I can't even get through this lesson. There's so many layers to this. And I personally believe that regardless of what field you're in, your mental health is most important. And if whatever profession you are in is causing your health, mental anguish, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, it's not worth it. It's not. And I'm not to say that you cannot make good money as a teacher, because I do know teachers who are model teachers who make like over $90,000 because they went through this rigorous process of becoming a model teacher. And we could literally be on the same exact wavelength. We're both 4th grade teachers, but you are making $50,000 more than me because you did this whole model teacher track that excelled you. But that doesn't mean that you're a better teacher. It just means that you have this extra credential that you put behind your name so that you can make this extra money. So, I mean, the entire system really needs to be revamped on so many different levels.
Right. And what you're saying right there is a mouthful, and it speaks volumes about the lack of priorities that unfortunately this country and our own community, Black folks, the lack of priority that we put in that we put when it comes to education, and the lack of value that we show when we interact with our educators, with our children's teachers. It speaks volumes. Let's go to go ahead.
Sorry. And I was just thinking about how some people can't even be with their own kid all day. Imagine being with 26 or 30 or 36. My friend Sam said her first year teaching, she had 37 students in her class. 37 4th graders in one Baltimore City class. One. 37 students. 37 students in one class. First year teacher. First year.
That's too much. It's too much
for the babies. It's
I'm
too much.
telling you, it's
And
too
then,
much.
oh my God, another issue. Oh, granted, this is not me coming at any child that has an IEP, because I think IEPs are important when they are used correctly and when they are actually followed. But when you have one classroom with 7 different categories of reading levels, how the hell do you teach one class where there are 7 different reading levels? 7. How the hell am I gonna, and you expect me as one person to figure out how to meet each student where they're supposed to be, dealing with all these other issues that are going on in the classroom. And now I got to figure out, how do I teach this learner? How do I teach this learner? How do I teach that learner? Now I have all these subcategories. This is too hard for this group. This is too slow for this group. This is okay for it's with little support.
That is.
And then one class.
Every time we have this conversation about education in this country, I just, and I talk to educators, I just think about the pain of teachers, man. It's when y'all, do y'all understand how serious the situation is? That the system that came out of the thinking of men and women has gotten to be so bad that the natural inclination of any person, especially of women, because women are the mothers, right? The natural inclination of a woman to say, okay, I want to teach, I want to share, I want to empower, becomes diminished because the system is just robbing you of your desire. It just kills the spirit.
Yeah.
And that's sinful. Seriously, that is sinful.
I remember being so naive in college.
Oh,
I can't wait to be a teacher. Got into it like, what the? No, I don't make enough money for this type of stress. Take me back. Take me out the game, coach.
And then, you know what? We lose brilliant minds. And I'm talking about, Black teachers, brilliant minds, brilliant insight, people that can take the education profession to the next level. They all walk away because it's just, as we say, this too much. This too much. All right, let's go to some comments because folks are checking in, got a lot to say on this. My man, Real Brooklyn, you checked in. You said things you need to buy your child. Well, actually, you said things you need to buy your child for going back to school: tactical gear, bulletproof vest, wall repelling kit, emergency wound kit, life insurance, and books. Okay. TL, you said, look, I think the teacher shortage is because of low wages and COVID. Everyone has been forced into or has had time to find other ways to make money. But as Farajii said, who's going to teach our children? Who's going to teach the kiddos?
Certainly not the parents. Certainly not the parents.
Lana, good to hear from you, sis. You said, I was a teacher right out of school. I came from a family of teachers and much respect to the field. However, these kids are crazy. Y'all been to the schools lately?
Farajii, honestly, when I tell you the fights, like I said, I've taught multiple grades, and I've also taught from like K through 8th grade, teaching STEAM all over the state and in DC as well. I had more fights in my 3rd grade class than I did with any other grade that I taught. I was like flabbergasted by how many fights there were. I was just like, what is going? I literally had to I got injured this past year, actually, from breaking up a fight. And I know I'm not supposed to do that, but it's kind of hard to see like kids fighting and like right by a desk where they could hit their head, and that would have been a whole other issue. But like it took like 3 months for my wrist to really even heal from a fight that I broke up. Like the disrespect, being called out of your name. I've seen teachers get called a fat bitch. I've seen all kinds of things. It's insane. It really is insane.
That is crazy.
I was pregnant and I was threatened by one of my students' family members because his sister wanted to play football. She was fine. She was having a good old time. But because she wanted to play football with the boys, and I let her, because why not? He stalked me for a month, and I couldn't take my kids out to the playground for a month, an entire month. And I was 7 months pregnant.
And that's the type of support, because, at that time, I brought this up, like, what is the teacher, what is the school doing? You know what I'm saying? Like outside of all of the stress, now a teacher got to worry about her own physical safety. Now let's put this in proper perspective, folks. When we talked about, when Nia and I talked about this, I was like, well, how you want me to handle it? I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, bro, she pregnant with my child, bruh. How you want me to handle it? Just because at the end of the day, you're not going to roll up on a pregnant woman. And how much of a man are you? So that just shows the weakness right there. Like you can go hard on a pregnant woman. How about you go hard on a bunch of dudes? All right, let's go back to the conversation. Tia, you checked in. Tia Z, you said the teacher shortage has been coming for some time. Demographics, low pay, racial and financial barriers to getting through the program 2 to 3 years after the bachelor's, and disrespect are other reasons. Absolutely, Tia.
Again, that practice, it's a biased test. We've been saying this about this with the SATs and so many other tests as well. Like tests really don't measure. And I mean, even as a teacher, I can say that. Like I've seen brilliant students completely freeze up when they take a test and fail it. But at every assignment, they were killing it. They know the content. I could have a conversation with them about the content. But the moment they get in front of that test, it's like their anxiety takes over. They shut. Like there's a skill to test taking, but everyone doesn't acquire that skill, and everyone doesn't. Even with you trying to teach those test skills, it's a dated concept. It truly is. And again, that is one of the reasons why there's such a shortage of Black teachers, because they really, and there's data that backs this up. They've been struggling to pass the praxis test, the praxis exam. So there we have it too, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I know shitty teachers who did really well on the praxis, but being smart and being able to teach are not the same thing.
No, hell no, it ain't the same thing.
It's
not the same thing. Hey, look, and you know it, and I know it, right? Like and folks, if you don't know Nira, if you go on her page, iCallHerQueen.com, if you go to listen to her podcast, you know that she is what we call a natural teacher. She's a natural educator. So regardless of what space she's in, you give her an opportunity to teach or train in front of adults or children or young people, she's gonna jump right into it. It just naturally comes to her. Everybody doesn't have that skill set.
No.
Everybody doesn't have that calling. You know what I mean? So for those, and teaching is not a job that you want to take just because you need a couple of dollars in your pocket. No,
not at all.
Whoa. Don't be that person. Be the person, like, you don't study years and years to be a doctor, to be like, I just wanted to get a couple of dollars in my pocket. No. You don't take all that time to study law just to say, it's just something to do on the side. So you, as a lawyer, these are callings.
I mean, for people that get into the field that didn't study it in college, those are typically, they go through programs like Teach for America. And then they take and put those teachers in low income schools first.
They're not ready.
So they're not ready. A lot of times it's white women who are placed in Black and brown communities who have zero connection to the community whatsoever. And it's just,
let me tell you,
it adds to the disconnect between the students and even them wanting to learn. Not saying that it's all rainbows and sunshine for Black teachers, because I just explained to you that it's not. But I can say that I've had more great experiences than I had bad experiences.
I agree.
It's funny because when I've had so many students call like mom, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you're not my mom. But that's how close they feel to me, that they're able to, like, they call me mom by accident. And there's beauty in that. There's beauty in being able to look at them and say, now you better sit down. And they're like, but it's a different connection. You know what I mean? Like, I can talk to them in a certain way because they know that it comes from a place of understanding and love. Whereas they will tell me, oh, if so-and-so, a white teacher talked to me the way that you do, I would have had a problem with that. But because it came from you and I know where you come from, then it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just take a couple more comments and folks, because folks have a lot to say. Mike, you said one of the ways we can better compensate teachers is for first-time home buyers. Give them a voucher for $30,000 down on a home in the zip code of where they teach, Farajii. Mike, we actually have, there are programs in Baltimore and
they
in
ain't
other
giving
places.
30,000 though. They ain't giving 30,000 though.
They ain't 30,000. I think they give you like 10. Maybe they give you like a credit of $10,000 or so.
I think it's like 5 or 10,000 for closing costs. Can y'all excuse me? Move.
Yeah. Karina, you checked in, and Karina, Mike, thank you so much, brother. Karina, you checked in. Always good to hear from you, Karina. You said college counselor and college readiness teacher here, or at least I used to be. Bless all the educators, but this one is done with the classroom and the school building. She's like, I don't even want to see the damn school building. Karina, I appreciate you. Janae, you said, look, we lose brilliant minds who truly have a heart for kids. Then we get these Teach for America people who are on the come up for their resume with no real heart. Karen is behind you. Wow.
I said
it. Clutch and Stick, you checked in and said, and I appreciate the comment. Clutch and Stick, you said showing out kids are looking for attention. They can't get it through positive measures. Let me just tell you, as we close out this part of the conversation, the fact is, it's going to be a community effort. We're at a point right now in this country, and I truly believe this, dear. You tell me what your thoughts are. You will have the final word on this. We're at a point right now that if we as parents, community members, don't get actively involved in the school system, and you and I talked about this, and I want you to explain this to folks. Like, for example, if you go into these websites like Great Schools or niche.com, where you can see what just do it for fun. Go onto these websites, Great Schools, I think it's greatschools.org or .com, Niche, Niche, and go and rate and see what the ratings of your children's school is in your neighborhood or wherever your school your children go to. And look at the rating. They do a simple rating, 1 out of 10. You know what I mean? If 10 is the highest, 1 is the lowest.
Yeah.
But if we don't get involved and you see your school rating is at a 2 or 3, which a lot of schools are, public schools are, then what that means, and Nira explained this to me, she said, this is not always about the children. There are other factors that can take a school down. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so the school rating is based on different things. It's based on how well students are progressing in math and reading. It's based on parent participation. It's based on teacher ratings in terms of when we're observed, our qualifications, all those things are factored in. And then it's funny because the school score is also factored in the teacher rating. It's like this hand-in-hand thing. So standardized testing is a big thing. That's how they rate this proficiency. It also is rated based upon how students are progressing for each year, whether or not they are improving, moving on to the next year. I mean, there are a lot of different factors, but I will say that test scores do play a major role in some of the schools. So, I mean, I personally have worked at schools that when I looked up the school score, I was like, oh, shit, we're a 2 out of 10 school. Does that mean I'm not a good teacher? No, but it means that, I mean, there are a lot of factors. I can tell you this year when my students took their standardized testing, most of them told me they didn't really take it. Most of them literally said, oh, yeah, I just skip. I mean, if it's a 70-minute block for a test and the entire class is done within 15 minutes, that pretty much tells you that none of them actually took the test. So that's going to reflect on the school, and it's going to show that the kids don't know anything. They're not basing off of their grades. They're basing it off of how well they did on the standardized testing. So.
And when we talk about that rating down the road, that can stop funding. That can stop that. It might your enrollment is going to go down. I mean, it's like a domino effect.
Yeah. And unfortunately, these lower schools are found in the Black and brown community, and it's unfair. But again, those standardized tests are where a lot of our kids struggle. I know we even had a little boy who spoke Arabic. He didn't speak English, and they still made this boy take the standardized test. He can't read.
Damn.
Make it make sense.
And see, again, this is why it's important that as a community member, just as much as you are a parent, that you get involved in some way, shape, or form. You ask for those accountabilities. There are surveys and there are ways very quickly. There are ways that you can there are tools and ways. Just call your school district headquarters and say, look, I'm hearing some bad things about the school, but I see that another school not too far from here is excelling. Why is that?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not having those type of conversations. And I mean, some of us, let me just say this, some of us individually, but in mass, collectively, we gotta get out of thinking that the schools know what they're doing all the time. They always got it right. Your child could be going to a school that's rated 1 out of 10, and you thinking they're getting the highest quality educational experience, and they're not.
Yeah.
But you know what the difference is? The difference could be you or that community can make all the difference in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I worked at schools where there were phenomenal teachers, and the school score was still low. You cannot blame the teachers for having a low score. When we're dealing with so many other issues in the classroom, I don't believe that the school score is a proper reflection of the work that is being done inside of these schools, right?
Right.
I also know that with private schools, parent participation is mandatory. In a lot of these private schools, it is mandatory that parents volunteer, that parents sign up, that they have a class parent. These are public schools should and could try to model some of these private schools a little bit better. Like, why not? If we see that these things are working in private schools, why not try to implement some of those things in public schools?
Right. I don't understand that at all. All right, look, we got to take a quick pause as we move forward. Let's switch gears. I got to bring you an update about a story that we just talked about yesterday. Last night, I came across this update, and then I was like, you know what? Let's bring it back to the culture. So we'll have that and more. So stay with us. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, for our next conversation, I wanted to bring you an update about the story that we had just talked about yesterday. Remember that I shared with you about how one Airbnb superhost by the name of Brad, his last name is Hauser, how he had put up, he had listed his Airbnb property as being a state-of-the-art Airbnb. Well, it ended up being a cabin that housed enslaved people, i.e. people that look like us. He put it on the Airbnb market. Well, Airbnb found the listing, talked to the superhost, and they issued an apology. Let me just share with you what they said in their recent statement. And I just want to get your take on whether you find this to be sufficient. But they removed the listing of this superhost, a cabin that once housed enslaved people in Mississippi. It was listed on Airbnb as a luxury space. And according to their recent statement, they said properties that formerly housed the enslaved have no place on Airbnb, according to the company spokesman, Ben Brett. He said in a statement that was sent to the Washington Post, he said, "We apologize for any trauma or grief created by the presence of this listing and others like it, and that we did not act sooner to address this issue." Now, the current owner, like I said, his name is Brad Hauser, said that the previous owner had decided to market the building as the place where slaves once slept. This is the quote from Mr. Hauser. He added that the building was a doctor's office rather than quarters where enslaved people slept. Why does that make a difference? He also added that he is not interested in making money off slavery, and also apologized for a listing that was insulting African Americans whose ancestors were slaves. Now, it was also previously reported that there was video that shows that the unit is openly advertised as a location where enslaved people lived in the 1830s. It was later used as a cabin for sharecroppers and eventually as a medical office. I want to bring back Culture Crew member Nir Muhammad, host of Queen Talks with Nir Muhammad, as we take a look at this. Dear, when you think about this story, a place that housed our people who were enslaved, being on Airbnb is trying to distance itself, saying, "Look, we apologize." Is that enough at this point?
For Airbnb, I mean, I guess that is enough in terms of Airbnb, but I definitely think that this person should definitely be banned from ever being allowed to host anything else or post anything else through Airbnb. It just was bizarre and just really weird. Just extremely, extremely weird, but not surprising. This is America.
So, yeah, I mean, and that's the other part about it, right? Like, the other part about it is that this is America. We're at a place right now where our history, and you are a history buff, our history seems to be, just up for whatever type of issue. Our history seems to be, hey, anybody can talk about it. Anybody can profit off of it. Anybody can do whatever with it. We can't do that way with other people's history. We can't talk about Jewish history. We can't talk about European history. But when it comes to Black history, it's fair game.
Yeah. That actually just made me think about Summer Walker's outfit that she wore to the BET Awards. How it was, oh, this is cultural appropriation. Oh my goodness, that was so disrespectful for her to wear this jewelry. And it's just like, are we serious right now?
Yeah.
Is it like, as Black people, are we not constantly culturally appropriated? So that's it. It's just very interesting that when the tables are turned, I mean, our guy, Dave Chappelle made a joke about this before, about you can say the N-word on TV, but there's certain words you can't say. So, I mean, at the end of the day, when it's at the expense of Black people, it's acceptable. When it's everybody else, it's unacceptable.
Yeah. So when companies are in a kind of like a situation that we saw with Airbnb, I'm thinking to myself, an apology is fine, but how do you ensure to people that, and like I say, this guy was a super host, right? So he had like a 4.97 rating. He had, nearly 70 reviews, good reviews from people. Some people, most of them came from white people.
Damn it.
Some people. So when you have that type of situation, folks, it just creates a whole lot of other. It's like this, it puts us in a crazy position, because it's like partly Airbnb should have picked this situation up much quicker than this. But folks, this is the problem. If we don't take our history seriously, no one else will. If we don't have a very a collective sense, like, and I know some of us, we rush to this point like, oh, well, slavery is over. Why are we still talking about it? Because that's a part of our history. That's a part of our history. So we can't just act as if it's not important, it's over, when the history of any people serves as the foundation for how that people think, how that people operate, how that particular group of people just integrate and how they're able to contribute to society. It's not just, oh, okay, that happened then, and then we just move on. Let's go to some of the comments, because I want to hear from what you guys are thinking about this whole situation with Airbnb being in the position that it's in. Let's go to Janae. Janae, well, first let's start with Donita, then we got Janae. Donita, thank you so much for checking in. You said you can't apologize for something that was done intentionally. Stop it. You got bad press, and now you want to apologize. And I think that's a big part of it. That's a huge part of it. Stop it. Stop it. It shouldn't have gotten this far. So I'm with you right there, Donita, and I appreciate you for checking in. Janae, you said, can we get the idiots who rented it and gave it 4.9 stars and give their apology? And can we make them Donkey Bama of the Year? Yeah, that's a big shout out to Charlemagne the God. We could make them a Donkey of the Year, right? Give them that prestigious award. But, you know, I'm kind of convinced now, folks. I'm really kind of convinced that at this point, we can't just make up, you just can't just, I feel like something harsher. This is my history. This is my people. This is our ancestors. We don't make fun of Irish people. Do you make fun of the British? Do you make fun of all of these folks, right? We often make fun, again, our history is fair game, but when somebody else's history is being talked about, we must preserve it. We must give it the utmost respect. And I'm going to just tell you, that's not fair. No. That's not fair at all. Janae, thank you so much. Chris V, you checked in. You said, that dude was thinking, why is everyone outraged at him? He's probably saying, it's not like I'm a slave owner. Shaking my head. Yeah. He probably is thinking that. He probably is thinking that. He probably thinking like, man, it's not even a big deal. Why they so mad? Then he going, the crazy part about
it. He equated it to like staying in like a Harry Potter themed house. Like, what? No, it's not the same, bruh. It's not the same.
It is not the same at all. The crazy part is he tried to justify it by saying, oh, it was a medical office. That was the last place. Before, at that point, it was a sharecropper's house. Before that point, enslaved people lived there. Bro, what are you talking about? And see, this is again, I said it yesterday.
Again, it comes down to the lack of respect for African American history. There's a lack of respect. They don't care. That's why they want to take it out of the history books. That's why they want to change the wording. It's, and it just truly is sad. It truly is, Farajii.
Yeah, it's sad, and I think to the big point of punishment or any type of accountability, that is, and we talk about cancel culture. But what about people who are who try to negate the rich history of Black America, who negate the rich history of African people? What is the punishment for that? That's my question. We can cancel everybody. Do we go on Airbnb and say, look, I've used the Airbnb, B&B. They must got to raise their standards on being a superhost. Because these superhosts, they don't, and I know if some of you, if y'all watching, if y'all Airbnb hosts, please tell me what a superhost means, because these places ain't super.
Yeah, I told you though, they get their ratings from the people that go there, and I'm sure there were white people that went there and were like, oh, this is so nice, and they probably brag to their friends about how they stayed at a former slave quarter, and they probably all had a fucking laugh about it and a good time. Let's be real.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right, look, we're going to take another quick pause. When we move forward, let's talk about some things that are trending right now. Stay with us. It's The Culture on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back. In the final few moments of today's show, I wanted to kind of take the conversation about one particular issue a little further. And it might just be me, but I think this is very, very interesting. Okay, so we all know that Beyonce changed her lyrics, right? You know, she used one term that people thought was sort of derogatory. So she changed that. Then she also changed the lyric based upon Khalees, another artist, saying that, hey, you used my song, and as a result of that, I want to, I have a problem with that. You never asked me. So Beyonce she didn't put out no message or anything like that. She just simply said, okay, fine, I'll just change the lyric. Monica Lewinsky said, hey, what about the lyric and the song Partition when you said that Monica Lewinsky me on, and so she wants to be changed. Okay. My thing is very quickly, and I want to get your take on this, Nara. When we talk about culture, are we opening a door for this level of, I don't know, engagement with fans? Is this a slippery slope? Because if we're in the space now where we can demand where artists can change their lyrics on songs, right? Should Black people be saying, stop using the N-word? Should Black people be saying, stop using certain terminology? Like, do we have the right to say that to our artists and demand that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, as a writer, as a creator, no, I don't want you to remove my creativity. It becomes a thing where then you become afraid to have your regular natural expression. First of all, Monica Lewinsky needs to sit the fuck down, because people say, Monica, if you want Beyonce to take that out of her song, then you better go back and every single rapper that has referenced that moment and ask them to take it out. There are movies that have referenced that. Girl, you did what you did. We've all done it. You're fine. Okay? It's just funny at this point. It's a cultural thing. I've known about this since I was in elementary school. Like, it's a cultural thing. No, it's already, as an artist, as a writer, it's already really, really hard to make sure that what you're thinking, no one else ever thought of before, or no one else ever said. It's hard to do that. Because we all live in the same world. We're all influenced by so many of the same exact things. It's like you're just nitpicking. Like, I'm gonna be honest, when I heard the song, I did not think about Khaleesi's song for like not even a second. I had to go back and like try to listen to them both to like see what she was talking about, and I still was kind of like, okay, Khaleesi, like whatever. I actually love the fact that Beyonce was just like, just remove this little song, this little whatever. Because at the end of the day, Khaleesi, your career will never even touch Beyonce's. And so for her, it's just like, whatever. It's just a nuisance, if anything. To me, Khaleesi, you should be embarrassed. The way that she went off on this big tangent on social media about it, it made you look silly. It made you look bitter. Just stop. You look like a hater. You sound like a hater. Yeah. And I feel like if anybody, you should have been mad at Pharrell because it was his production and not yours. And it was people are just so annoying about every little thing. And it's just like, let it go, Khaleesi. Regardless of whether or not Beyonce changed that one little thing, your music career could never see the heights that Beyonce's could. And I don't know if that's why she's salty. I don't know, but just...
I don't know either. I mean, I get it because as an artist, you know, I mean, we're both artists, and I understand that you feel like, oh, that's my creative intellectual property, you quote unquote, right? In the music business, unless you own the masters to your songs, in the music business, unless you specifically outline in your contract agreement that you own every parts of that song, part of that song, it belongs to the producer. Part of that song belongs to other people. Yeah. So it's just interesting, but it just made me think about.
When you think about a beat, because you make music, Farajii. When you make music, right, and you're a studio and you're working with the producers, that soundboard that you guys use to create those beats, it's the same instruments that everyone else uses. It's so easy to be in your own zone making a beat, and then someone else is like, whoa, that sounds like my beat, and you're like, oh shit, that wasn't even intentional, right? Because it's only but so many instruments you could use to make a beat.
But let me check this out.
How many songs are out there in the world? Producers, how easy?
Yeah. No, I get it. No, and I go ahead and finish your point. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say that most producers.
It has to be so easy to.
See, that's the problem. That's the problem. See, that's the problem when you're on the same page. All right. So here's the thing. All right. Here's the thing. Most producers, they are protected entities, just like the artists, right? Most producers are protected entities. So they know that, like, the artist comes in with a certain level of protection. I'm speaking of legal protection. Once you write your lyrics, once you speak your lyrics, that it becomes into like this protected space. Same thing for the producer. The producer creates the sound, right? The producer should know at the very beginning of the process, of the music making process, this sound comes from this person, this sound comes from that person, this sound, you know what I mean? And I have to do a couple of things. Either I pay people to use that, I credit them to use that sound because it's still pieces of that sound. I mean, there are protections in place. So you're right, to the point of, it's really with Pharrell, right? Like, unless, again, I haven't heard if Khaleesi uses the music or own the music, but it's really with Pharrell. But my thinking is, this might be a slippery slope just for the artist because, like you said, like at the end of the day, if you write something, if you sing something, if you're creating something, it's like we can't, if we start to dictate and tell the artist when they come out with a song, we don't like that, change it.
You already know where I stand.
I know exactly where you stand.
Move on to the next. I didn't ask you to listen to my stuff. If you don't like it, move on. It's that simple. No. That's why I told you when Monica came out, Beyonce is so nice because, and it's funny because we both are Virgos too. And I know cussing Khaleesi out and probably said so much behind closed doors. The fuck is this? I already know.
Right.
But I'm the different type of Virgo. I'm the one that's gonna say it. Bitch, get out of here. Bye. Move on. Nobody even thought about your song except maybe one person. Bye.
Right. The thing is,
but let me just say, I actually am a fan of Khalees. I actually am a fan, and I do listen to her music. That particular song is literally on one of my favorite playlists. But it did not make Beyonce's song did not make me think about Khalees' song. I just have to say that it didn't. And I know that song that Khalees was talking about. I know all the lyrics of that song. I love that song, and I just didn't hear it personally.
So here's my thing. Like I said,
Beyonce for removing it.
Right. But here's my thing. If we go down that slope, then that empowers us, because I don't want to always hear the N-word in people's songs. So should I go to social media and make a big fuss and say, hey, man, a rapper so-and-so, I don't like you keep using the N-word? Because that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. You know what I'm saying? You don't always got to say the N-word to describe me as a black man.
It just makes it really, really hard to be a creator.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just becomes too much. A creator, it becomes too much. And it starts to take away even the joy of creating. When you have to try to think about pleasing everybody, it's like, just listen to what makes you happy. You don't have to listen to every artist. You just don't have to. But it's just unfair. It's very unfair. And like you said, it's a slippery slope. And no one has time to think about, going through the Rolodex of every song that was ever created and making sure that when you created this new beat, that beat doesn't, you have the same instrument. I mean, there's not even enough instruments in the world to make all these new sounds. It's just, remember that guy came out and said that Drake stole and Chris Brown stole some line from No Guidance from his song, and you and I listened to it and we were like, so
it was the most.
Are we not? I mean, we all kind of talk the same. We're culturally impacted the same way. So if you and I use the same language, if we both say this too much, and then somebody else is like, no, you can't say this too much because only I can say this too much. It's like, really? Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's too much. It's too much.
Exactly. Absolutely. All right. Well, dear, I appreciate you for checking in on today's show. It's good to have you and see you back again. And we look forward to reconnecting with you very soon. Hopefully we can get you back in on a weekly basis once again.
I know. I've been on a plantation. I've been working.
Awesome. That's all good.
I'm leaving the quarters and I'll be back soon.
There we go. Nira Muhammad, you could definitely check her out as she serves as the host of the podcast Queen Talks with Nira Muhammad. And you can also see her. You just check her out on her website at icallherqueen.com. All right, folks, make sure that that's going to do it for us. But make sure y'all continue to show us support here on the Black Star Network. If you enjoyed the conversations, and we got a lot of new watchers today, so I'm very, very happy, and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. But we need more. We need more watchers, more people to support the work that we're doing here with Black-owned media. So make sure you go to blackstarnetwork.com and you can support Black Star right from the website. Download the app. You can make sure that you can download all of the necessary. Get the app. You can get it for free. Download it to your phone, to your television. Everything is free. But this, more importantly, even if you can't give something financially, you can share the content. Sharing the content is everything with us building this platform. As I mentioned, Brother Roland is on a 24-hour, wants to create a 24-hour streaming service in the last quarter of this year. So we need your support. It's more important now than ever before that we build the momentum to make that happen. All right. Stay tuned. Speaking of Brother Roland, stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered RMU Thursday night, folks. So y'all know what it's all about. Thursday nights, bringing that heat, bringing that fire. Reese Colbert, Dr. Carr, and everybody on a Thursday night. So definitely tune in for that. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right. while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Peace.